The chamber of the Galactic Council quivered with unease as delegates of dozens of species exchanged whispers, their voices layered in 1,000 dialects. A single name carried through the halls, a name repeated in panic and disbelief: Unity Prime. Reports had arrived that a massive vessel of unknown design had appeared at the edge of Volari-controlled space, bearing no familiar crest, no Empire's emblem, no fractured colony's insignia. Instead, it flew a banner etched with a symbol no alien had seen in their lifetimes, the seal of a united Earth. The very notion was unthinkable. Humanity, a young race notorious for its divisions, its endless wars, its chaotic politics, had done what the ancient species of the galaxy had long abandoned. It had spoken as one. Far from the Council's chamber, aboard the ship itself, Captain Adrian Voss stood at the command deck, hands folded neatly behind his back, his eyes fixed on the panorama of stars that stretched like a silent canvas before him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his presence radiating a calm authority that masked the storm that lived in his thoughts. Humanity had gambled everything on this mission. One vessel, one crew, one statement to the galaxy. He knew the alien powers would not welcome them with open arms. He also knew retreat was no longer possible. Behind him, Commander Elias Kane approached, his boots echoing against the polished steel floor. Kane was a man of sharp angles, face cut by tension, words edged like blades. "They're circling already," Kane muttered, nodding toward the tactical display. "Volari scouts shadowed us from the moment we entered their territory. If they're waiting for orders, it won't be long before we're tested." "They will test us," Voss replied, his voice level, his gaze unwavering. "And they will learn what it means to face humanity whole." The words were not boastful, merely factual, spoken with the certainty of one who had committed his soul to a cause larger than himself. At the engineering stations below, Chief Marcus Hale barked instructions to a team of technicians, his sleeves rolled up, face smudged with grease that never seemed to wash off no matter how many times he tried. He had spent his life among machines, building them, breaking them, bending them until they obeyed his will. This ship was his magnum opus, every system tweaked beyond specification, every engine tuned to perfection. Yet even Hale, who trusted steel over men, understood the truth. Metal alone would not save them. "Engines will hold," he growled when Kane's eyes flicked toward him. "But if these lizards send a fleet, we'll need more than thrust and shields. We'll need miracles." Above, in the observation gallery, Ambassador Richard Falkner prepared his notes, his suit pressed immaculate, his hair carefully combed into the kind of perfection that suggested artifice. His was the face meant for the galaxy, calm, confident, polished. Falkner had the delicate task of convincing alien empires that humanity's unification was not a threat, but a promise of cooperation, of balance, of new alliances. Yet within him simmered ambition, sharp and hungry. He saw opportunity in every crisis, power in every word left unspoken. Unlike Voss, whose loyalty was to humanity's survival, Falkner's loyalty drifted toward the future he envisioned for himself. The four men embodied the ship's fragile unity: warrior, strategist, builder, and diplomat, bound by necessity, not always trust. Outside their steel cocoon, the galaxy watched, calculating. For centuries, alien empires had viewed humanity as a curiosity, a species too fractured to matter. They had dismissed Earth as loud but harmless, ambitious, but doomed by its own divisions. Now, with one voice, humanity threatened to shatter the careful balance that held the galaxy in check. Message from the Volari Patrol, an officer called from the comms station. Her voice carried the weight of history. Voss gestured for the transmission to be displayed. A scaled face appeared on the screen, eyes slit and unblinking, voice dripping disdain. "Unregistered vessel. You trespass in Volari territory. Identify and surrender, or be destroyed." The ultimatum hung in the air like the pull of gravity, dragging silence across the command deck. Falkner stepped forward, smoothing his jacket. "Allow me." His voice softened, practiced in charm. "Esteemed Volari, I speak for the United Humanity Council. We come not as invaders, but as partners, bringing with us the hope of—" The Volari cut him off with a hiss. "There is no human council. There is no one humanity. You are scattered, insignificant. Do not insult us with lies." The transmission ended in static. For a heartbeat, the deck was still. Kane broke the silence with a bitter laugh. "They don't believe us. Hell, I can't blame them. After centuries of killing each other, we expect them to think we've changed overnight." He looked to Voss, eyes narrowing. "What if they're right? What if unity is just a mask, and we're still the same squabbling creatures underneath?" Voss turned, his gaze steady, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Then we prove them wrong. Not with words, with resolve." He looked over his crew, each man bent his duty, each heart tethered to a fragile dream. "From this moment on, there is no going back. If they doubt our unity, then every action we take must become proof. Humanity does not beg for acknowledgement. We show it. We live it. We fight for it." The words settled over the crew like armor, filling spaces left hollow by fear. Hale grunted approval, returning to his consoles with renewed vigor. Kane folded his arms, skeptical but silent, his mind already mapping contingencies. Falkner adjusted his cuffs, his expression unreadable, calculating how best to spin what came next into a narrative of inevitability. Outside, alien patrols closed in, their ships gliding like predators in the dark. Unity Prime held its ground, engines humming with restrained potential, weapons systems cold but primed. For a moment, the vast silence of space stretched between hunter and prey, neither side willing to blink. The first confrontation loomed, a spark waiting for the smallest breath of wind. Voss allowed himself a final look at the stars, countless worlds hidden among them, countless civilizations watching. History had chosen its stage. "Signal Earth," he said quietly. "Tell them the galaxy has noticed." As the order was carried out, the ship stood alone against the expanse, a solitary shadow daring to defy empires. Humanity, fractured for millennia, now bound by a single vessel, awaited its trial by fire. The council chambers across the galaxy buzzed with alarm, alliances whispered, armies mobilized. The game had begun, and the first move belonged to Earth. For the first time in history, the galaxy would see humanity not as scattered tribes, but as one. The Volari wasted no time. Within hours, a flotilla emerged from the edge of the system, their ships sleek and curved like blades drawn from a scabbard. The patrols that had shadowed Unity Prime now rejoined a full battle group, encircling the human vessel in a tightening crescent of power. On the command deck, tension coiled like a drawn bowstring. Captain Adrian Voss studied the tactical display with a stillness that made him seem carved from stone. He had expected this reaction. A unified humanity was not a message the galaxy would allow to pass unchallenged. Still, the sheer swiftness of the Volari response spoke volumes. They were not here to question. They were here to break the myth before it took root. Commander Elias Kane leaned over the display, eyes darting between the shifting symbols of enemy ships. "They're boxing us in," he said, voice taut but controlled. Standard Volari tactic, cut off escape vectors, crush from multiple sides. "They don't think we'll fight back. They think we'll panic." His lips curved into a humorless smile. "They don't know us." Across the deck, Chief Marcus Hale slammed a panel shut, wiping sweat and grease from his brow with the back of his hand. "Engines ready. Shields primed. But let's be clear, this isn't a duel, it's an execution squad. They've got numbers, firepower, and home field advantage. What we've got is one ship, a stubborn captain, and a prayer." Voss allowed the murmur of doubt to hang for only a breath before cutting through it. "We have more than that. We have unity. They will come expecting chaos, expecting us to fracture under pressure. They will not expect resolve." His gaze moved deliberately across his officers. "We show them what it means when humanity speaks with one voice." Ambassador Richard Falkner shifted uneasily, his polished words faltering in the gravity of the moment. "Captain, Diplomacy should not yet be abandoned. If we open a channel, I can attempt to reason with them, to buy us time. Perhaps. Ambassador Voss interrupted, his tone sharpened to steel. Their fleet did not arrive to talk. They came to erase us. The deck shuddered as the first volley of Volari fire streaked past the hull. A warning shot meant more for intimidation than harm. The sound reverberated through the bones of the crew, a reminder that they were one order away from annihilation. The silence that followed was more dreadful than the noise. Kane leaned closer to Voss, his voice low. If we strike first, we set the tone. No more doubt, no more waiting. We either show them our teeth or die, with them still sheathed. Voss gave a single, measured nod. Target their lead cruiser. Disable, not destroy. Let them see that restraint does not mean weakness. The command rippled through the deck. Hale's hands danced across the controls, systems roaring to life under his touch. The hum of engines deepened, weapons locked on, and the heart of Unity Prime throbbed with restrained fury. When the first human salvo ripped across the void, it was not the blast of overwhelming firepower but the precision of intent that stunned the Volari. Their flagship reeled, shields collapsing in a cascade of fractured light. For a brief, breathless moment, the galaxy witnessed the impossible, a single human ship crippling an Empire's war cruiser. Panic flashed through the enemy formation. Their second volley came not as warning but as wrath, a barrage of energy lances hammering into Unity Prime. The deck shook violently, sparks showering from a ruptured conduit. Hale cursed, slamming his fist on a console to reroute power. Shields at 70%. Engines holding, but another volley like that, and we'll be flying blind. Kane's eyes burned with grim satisfaction. Good. Let them think we're desperate. They won't see the trap until it closes. He gestured at the tactical display, where human maneuvering cut between the rigid Volari formations. They fight like they always have, predictable, mechanical. We fight like survivors. The next exchange proved his words true. Voss ordered sudden vector shifts, unorthodox thrust patterns, and feints that no alien fleet commander would dare attempt. Hale forced the engines past their red line, coaxing out performance that should have torn them apart. Shots that should have landed past harmlessly into void, while human counterstrikes struck precisely where the Volari were most exposed. The enemy's superior numbers became a liability as their ships collided, confused by movements they could not anticipate. Still, the cost mounted. The ship groaned under the strain, systems bleeding energy, crew scrambling to contain fires and ruptures. Falkner staggered as another blast rattled the gallery, clutching a railing with trembling fingers. This is madness, he muttered. If we destroy them, we'll spark a war the whole galaxy will rush to join. Kane shot him a withering look. Ambassador, the war is already here. Better it begins with their fear than our surrender. The decisive moment came swiftly. Voss ordered a concentrated strike on the Volari command vessel's drive core. The blast detonated in a sunburst of fractured metal and searing light, the cruiser tearing itself apart in a chain of explosions. The shockwave rippled through the enemy formation, sending their fleet scattering in disarray. Unity Prime drifted through the wreckage like a shadow reborn, battered but unbroken. Silence reclaimed the deck. The crew exhaled as one, disbelief mingling with exhilaration. They had faced the impossible and endured. Humanity had shown its hand, and it was not a weak one. Yet the victory was not triumph but proclamation. Across the stars, countless eyes had witnessed the battle through relays and reports. The message was undeniable. One human ship had faced an Empire's fleet and emerged standing. Voss looked to his officers, voice calm despite the fire in his eyes. They will not forgive this. Nor will they forget. The galaxy now knows that humanity stands united. The question is not whether they will come for us, but how soon. Kane folded his arms, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at his lips. Then let them come. They'll find out the hard way that one ship is only the beginning. Falkner smoothed his jacket, his expression carefully neutral though his mind already raced with possibilities. If war was inevitable, then so too was opportunity. Hale collapsed into his chair, exhausted but alive, a rare laugh shaking loose from his chest. One ship against the galaxy. Damn fools. We might just pull it off. Outside, the stars glittered indifferent to the blood spilled among them. The wreckage of the Volari fleet drifted silently, a warning carved into the void. From this moment, war was no longer speculation but certainty. The galaxy had demanded humanity's surrender, and humanity had answered with fire. You said. Word of the Volari defeat spread faster than light, carried by frightened whispers and official communiques alike. Across the galaxy, empires that had long viewed humanity as a trivial species now saw them in a new and unsettling light. The Zerath Dominion declared the battle a provocation, the Draken clans called for blood to restore honor, and the Volari themselves swore vengeance. No one mistook the skirmish as an isolated clash. To the galaxy, Unity Prime was not a single ship, but the declaration of a new force, a threat to the balance that had endured for millennia. Aboard the vessel, Captain Adrian Voss felt the weight of that truth settle heavier with every passing hour. He carried himself with the same controlled resolve, but the lines etched into his face deepened, carved by responsibility. Each decision he made now resonated beyond the lives of his crew. It spoke for an entire species. His silence on the command deck was not indifference, but calculation, a man tallying the cost of survival against the measure of destiny. Commander Elias Kane saw the storm gathering from another angle. Poring over intelligence intercepts, his mind stitched patterns of inevitable conflict. Alien fleets were mobilizing, coalitions forming. They'll come together, he muttered during a strategy briefing, his voice sharp with grim certainty. Old rivalries don't matter when they smell a common enemy. We've handed them unity, Captain, not ours, but theirs. Every empire that hates its neighbor now has something greater to hate. Us. His eyes, dark and piercing, locked with Voss's. We cannot fight them head-on. We need to think like wolves, not soldiers. Chief Marcus Hale grunted at the words, his arms blackened with grease after another sleepless night wrestling with machinery. Wolves, soldiers, doesn't matter what we call it. We're bleeding the ship dry just keeping her afloat. She wasn't built for endless war. Push her too far and she'll tear herself apart from the inside before an enemy gets the chance. He glanced up, jaw tight. I can patch her, Captain. I can make her roar again. But she needs a chance to breathe, or the next battle will be our last. Ambassador Richard Falkner attended the same meeting, his presence as polished as ever, though his voice carried a sharper edge than before. And yet retreat would undo everything we've gained. The galaxy is watching. If we vanish into hiding now, they'll say humanity's unity was a lie, a fleeting mask. We need to choose our next confrontation carefully, make it symbolic. Allies exist out there, if we reach for them. Dissidents, rivals of these great empires, they might welcome us if we can prove our value. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of ambition and vision. And if humanity presents itself as the hinge upon which galactic politics turn, then no power can erase us. The four men sat in uneasy silence, each perspective clashing, yet bound together by necessity. Voss finally spoke, his voice low but resonant. Then we do all of it. We strike where they least expect, bleed them when they reach for us, and prove to those watching that humanity is neither prey nor conqueror, but a force to be reckoned with. The days that followed carved those words into reality. The ship became a ghost in the void, slipping past blockades, ambushing convoys, unraveling the rigid strategies of their enemies. Kane's brilliance shaped these encounters into victories far beyond their scale, every skirmish chosen to humiliate, to disrupt, to spread doubt. Hale's relentless labor kept the engines screaming and the weapons burning, his exhaustion masked by the grit of his determination. Falkner, ever watchful, intercepted transmissions and seeded propaganda into alien networks, crafting a narrative of inevitability. Humanity had risen, and nothing could push it back into obscurity. Yet for every success, the pressure mounted. The galaxy's unity against them grew stronger, and whispers reached the crew that entire armadas were being forged with the sole purpose of crushing Earth. On the deck, morale wavered under the knowledge that no reinforcement could arrive. No second ship would come to their aid. They were alone, a single spear point hurled into the chest of giants. In a rare moment of privacy, Kane confronted Voss in his quarters. His voice lacked its usual bite, softened by the gravity of the truth. "Adrian, we can't win this forever. Every battle stretches us thinner. Every victory buys us less time. Sooner or later, they'll trap us," and then he trailed off, his gaze heavy. "We'll die, and humanity will die with us." Voss met his eyes steadily. "Perhaps. But death is not the only end, Elias. If we fall in a way that cannot be ignored, if we leave a scar deep enough on the galaxy, then humanity's story won't end here. It will echo. And one echo can be enough to rattle an empire." Kane's expression hardened, though not with disagreement. "Then let's make sure the echo is deafening." Meanwhile, Falkner's ambition sharpened. He saw himself not merely as humanity's representative, but as its architect on the galactic stage. In whispered messages to alien dissidents, he promised cooperation. In carefully leaked transmissions, he painted the Unity Prime not as a rogue ship, but as the first envoy of a new galactic order. Some called him visionary, others called him traitor. Voss saw only a man whose hunger might yet serve humanity, provided it was chained to discipline. The galaxy's counterstroke came sooner than expected. Intercepted transmissions revealed that the Zerath Dominion, Valari Hegemony, and Draken clans had forged an unprecedented coalition. Their fleets would converge within weeks, a tidal wave of firepower designed to erase humanity's presence entirely. On the command deck, as the crew absorbed the news, silence fell heavier than any bombardment. Hale muttered darkly, "3 empires, 1 goal. That's not war. That's extermination." Voss straightened, his voice cutting through despair with iron steadiness. "Then we will meet them, and we will show them that extermination is not so simple. We may not hold forever, but we will make every star they cross burn for the price of it." The men around him did not cheer. They did not need to. They knew their captain's words were not bravado but a vow. Humanity's unity was no longer theory, no longer a fragile experiment. It was forged in fire, sharpened by loss, and tested by an enemy vast beyond comprehension. As the fleet of empires gathered, Unity Prime prepared for the storm. Kane drafted plans of impossible daring, Hale pushed his engines into screaming compliance, and Falkner polished speeches meant to ripple across the stars. Voss walked the decks in silence, his presence steadying every trembling hand, every faltering heart. They all knew the truth. The galaxy had declared humanity's existence a crime, and humanity's answer would be written in blood and fire. When the final preparations were made, Voss stood at the viewport, watching the stars whirl slowly past. "We didn't start this war," he said softly, though every man present heard him. "But we will finish it. For every world they threaten, for every voice they try to silence, humanity will answer as one." The men around him stood straighter, the weight of fear reshaped into resolve. The next battle would not be a skirmish, but a reckoning. And in that reckoning, the fate of humanity would be carved into the galaxy forever. "You said." The stars burned cold and indifferent as the coalition armada emerged from hyperspace. 1,000 warships, their hulls gleaming with the colors of 3 empires, spread like a tide across the void. Against that wall of steel and fire, Unity Prime appeared impossibly small, a lone figure standing before an avalanche. But aboard her, every breath, every glance, every tightened grip upon a console carried the weight of a species refusing to bow. Captain Adrian Voss stood at the center of the command deck, his hands clasped behind his back. His expression revealed nothing of the storm he carried inside. To his crew, he was immovable, unyielding as the ship itself. Yet in the silence before the coming clash, he thought of Earth, of cities still unscarred by war, of faces that might never know how close they stood to annihilation. If this was humanity's final stand, then it would be one written with precision and fire, not desperation. Commander Elias Kane leaned over the tactical display, eyes alive with calculation. "They're spreading their formations," he muttered, voice sharp with urgency. "They're not afraid of us. They're toying with us. They think one ship can't possibly matter. That arrogance is our opening." His fingers danced across the holographic field, sketching maneuvers that looked more like sleight of hand than strategy. "If we can split their lines, bait them into chasing ghosts, we can bleed them, one wound at a time." Chief Marcus Hale's voice cut through the air like the grind of metal. "You're talking about pushing the engines past redline. Again. We're already patched together with prayers and tape, Commander. I can give you speed, I can give you fire, but I can't give you both for long. Push her too hard, and she won't just fail, she'll tear herself apart." Kane didn't flinch. "Then we dance on the edge until she does. Better to burn out with purpose than die standing still." Ambassador Richard Falkner adjusted his collar, his gaze steady but ambitious fire flickering beneath. "Gentlemen, you speak as though survival is our only goal. But if we fall, then we must fall in a way that shifts the galaxy itself. The Coalition may destroy this ship, but if we craft the right message, if we show the galaxy that humanity fought with unity, brilliance, and defiance, then our death becomes legend. And legends cannot be erased." His words carried weight, not because of the promise of survival, but because he spoke the truth no one else dared to voice. Victory might not mean living, but ensuring humanity's name endured. The deck trembled as the first salvo of the Coalition struck, a rain of plasma and torpedoes that lit the void in blinding arcs. Shield screamed, the air thrumming with the force of impact. Voss raised his voice, calm yet commanding. "Hold formation. Return fire only when the strike matters. Make them waste their fury." Hale's hands flew over controls, his sweat glistening as he coaxed life out of an engine that wanted nothing more than to die. "Come on, girl," he growled under his breath. "One more run, just one more." Kane barked orders, weaving the ship through impossible vectors, carving a path that made the Leviathan Coalition stumble, if only for a heartbeat. Falkner's voice crackled through subspace channels, his crafted words streaming into alien networks, framing every maneuver, every defiance, as proof of humanity's ascension. The battle became not just survival, but performance, a deadly stage upon which each man played his role. Voss the unshakable captain, Kane the ruthless strategist, Hale the unbreakable engineer, Falkner the silver-tongued prophet. And together they turned a single ship into a symbol that made the Coalition hesitate, however briefly. But hesitation could not last forever. A Draken warcruiser locked weapons, its cannons spitting fire that carved into Unity Prime's flank. The ship shuddered, alarms wailing. Hale cursed as consoles sparked. "She can't take another like that." Voss's voice cut through the chaos, firm as steel. "Then she won't. Kane, target their lead vessel. Hale, give me every ounce of power left. Falkner, make sure the galaxy is watching." The ship surged forward, engines roaring past safe limits, hull plates glowing with strain. Unity Prime darted into the maw of the Coalition like a blade aimed at the heart. Kane's strategy unfolded in perfect, impossible precision. The warcruiser, too confident to expect defiance, faltered as Unity Prime's guns spat fury. Explosions ripped across its hull, the massive vessel breaking apart in fire. A ripple spread through the enemy lines. Not fear, not yet, but doubt. One ship, against all odds, had slain a giant. And that doubt was enough. Falkner's voice soared through the comms, his words carried on hacked frequencies to every listening ear. "You see us. You see humanity. One ship, one people, united not by conquest, but by the will to stand when all the galaxy demands we kneel. If we fall, know this, we will fall as more than survivors. We will fall as founders." For a heartbeat, even the void itself seemed to hold its breath. The Coalition advanced still, but slower, their movements no longer dripping with contempt. They had expected a pest, not a predator. On the deck, Hale slumped against his console, exhaustion etched deep, but his grin feral. "She's still flying, Captain." "Barely, but she's still flying." Voss placed a steady hand on the railing, eyes locked on the storm of ships closing around them. "Then we keep flying. Until the last star burns out. We keep flying." The battle raged on, a tide humanity could not turn, yet refused to be crushed beneath. Unity Prime burned and bled, her crew battered but unbroken. And in the heart of that chaos, each man understood that the true war was no longer about a single ship or even the survival of Earth. It was about memory, about leaving an imprint so deep that even if they perished, the galaxy would never forget the name of humanity. And as the coalition closed its circle, preparing for the killing blow, Unity Prime lunged once more into the fire, not as prey, but as legend in the making. "You said